Namaste and welcome to PSM Speak. We are witnessing the most unfortunate situation, the Russian war on Ukraine, the news of unabated death and destruction pouring in, yes, through the media, but at times what we observe could be not the same what is happening on the ground. The reportage couldn't be accurate. Some people might want to see the things through their own prisms, but actually what is happening there, only the people who are experiencing it, they know the pain. The Ukrainians know that. Today I have with me Miss Ellen Lopatkina, a person of Ukraine origin. Ellen is the owner of a logistics company here in the United States. Currently she is one of the chairs of a non-profit organization organizing aid to the Ukrainian people and the defense forces there. Several of Ellen's close relatives are living in the troubled area of Ukraine and in Russia. Ellen, can you please share your experience and information about how the Ukrainians are facing this crisis?
I am Ukrainian by birth and by upbringing, and I have strong ties to both Ukraine and Russia, with my father being in Russia, so I do see what's happening on the Russian side with propaganda and how it's being portrayed. But in Ukraine, I have significant amount of family that is right now in the cities that are being hit the hardest of Kharkov, Ukraine, and a lot of my employees are Ukrainians who have families anywhere from Kharkov to Kiev to western parts of Ukraine, whose families are affected constantly, whose homes have sometimes been hit by aviation bombs and rocket-propelled grenades and artillery fire. The atrocities that are happening upon Ukrainians right now are absolutely horrific. The loss of civilian life that is happening in Ukraine right now is absolutely unacceptable and absolutely heartbreaking. The crimes that Russia is committing upon civilian Ukrainians are something that absolutely no civilized or uncivilized nation in the world should ever experience. This is not a war of two aggressors. This is a war where a neighbor attacked civilians in their beds at 4 o'clock in the morning. People woke up in their beds not understanding why a neighbor, a brother, a nation we always had such close ties with, a nation that a lot of our people share language with, a nation that is so closely commingled with our population, would do something like that.
How did it exactly start, as you have learned from your relatives over there?
People all over Ukraine woke up with ballistic rockets hitting airports and neighboring areas in almost every single city of Ukraine. They woke up at 4:30 in the morning to the bombings. And what followed next was even worse, because once Russia realized that they are not getting Ukraine conquered in a day or two, they went on all offensive and they started shelling, they started bombing, they started launching grenades and rockets into residential areas.
Ellen, your family members are there. What are their first-hand experiences? What are the roots of this conflict?
My family, unfortunately, my husband's whole family is in the area of Kharkov, the city that has been hit probably the hardest, along with Mariupol and Kiev. The city that my husband grew up in, the multinational city, the city that houses thousands and thousands of foreign students, including those from India, that are unable to evacuate right now because they are hitting evacuation trains from time to time. They're hitting railroad tracks. The roads are full of debris that cuts the tires. People are scared and there is no chance of getting what they call a green corridor to organize the evacuations orderly. People are being used as cannon meat. And the loss of civilian life, unaccounted for right now, will be in thousands and thousands, if not of tens of thousands. People that have fled Ukraine, the number is now about 1.5 million that were able to flee. And we have to understand, because of the martial law, people that are fleeing Ukraine right now are women and children, with men staying behind to fight, to defend, to make sure that they still have the land for their family eventually to return to. The weapons that Russia is using against Ukraine has violated every international law and every humanity law that is out there. They're using thermobaric bombs. They're using cassette rockets that cause significant loss of civilian lives. Just last night, 10 residential high-rises in the city of Kharkiv were hit and caught on fire and burned down, leaving hundreds and hundreds of people without their homes, without their belongings. Most of them dead. Those that were in shelters don't know where they're gonna go and how they're gonna get out of there. And the only reason for all of this happening is because Russian president has wanted to rebuild the Soviet Union. He wanted to take all the republics that has left decades ago and gained their independence and build their destiny whichever way they chose to. He wants to bring them all under one rule, his rule, and rebuild what was the Soviet Union. And Ukrainians are not a small nation, and it shouldn't be happening to a nation small or large, no matter what. Ukrainians are a population of 42 million people that have their own language, own history, own customs, that live on their land and has not attacked anyone. Ukraine was one of the countries, or at that time republics, that has carried a significant portion of losses in World War II. Ukraine has suffered from famine in 1932 and 33, losing 1.5 million people to famine that was artificially created by Soviets.
Did Ukrainians expect this, as the bickerings had been going on for a long time?
This conflict is something that we did not expect. This conflict came as a surprise. It caught people in their beds. It caught families off guard. And it is not something that civilized nations should ever experience in their lifetime. It's unjustified. It is criminal. It is murderous. It is a genocide. The conflict itself takes roots in the long history of Russian-Ukrainian relations. Russia has always tried, and at some point successfully so, conquered or separated parts of Ukraine, even though the population spoke Ukrainian with their own customs. Most of the Ukrainians never considered themselves Russians. The pretext for Russians to invade Ukraine was a defense of Russian-speaking population. And me, even though I'm Ukrainian, my first and last name are completely Russian. I inherit that from my grandparents who are Russian. And I have never been a subject to any kind of discrimination. I have never been a subject to any kind of limitations, be that if I spoke Ukrainian or Russian or any other language within Ukraine. And that has never changed. The Ukrainian nation is one of the most welcoming, warm-hearted nations, and thousands of foreign students, including from India, can vouch for that. We have created a country since gaining our independence in 1991 that was a home to people that welcomed anyone in their houses, that has created acceptable and kind environment to everyone, no matter what their nationality or origins or religion was. And right now we're being destroyed and almost wiped off the face of earth. Our men are dying defending their land. Our children are dying because Russians are not just bombing the infrastructures. Kharkov lost children's oncology centers that were hit by rockets. They bombed the mental health institution that had over 500 patients that were immobilized or disabled to the point where they couldn't be taken down into the bomb shelters. The atrocities that are happening are absolutely unimaginable. The civilians that are dying, those deaths are absolutely unnecessary.
Where is this heading to? What extent President Putin thinks that he is nearing the goal? Does he think that he is achieving the goal? What is the response of the people of Ukraine?
And at this point, unfortunately, it doesn't look like there is an end game to this. My opinion is that Russian president has completely gone off reels. He is completely taken aback by the fact that Ukrainians did not welcome him. We did not want him. We do not want to be a part of Russia. We want to be people that decide their own destiny. And the defense that Russian forces have faced has stalled their progress and conquering of Ukraine, but increased the bloodshed. And at this point, my personal opinion is that Russia has realized that conquering of Ukraine is not going to be easy, and they just now decided to turn it into wasteland that is going to serve as a bumper between them and the NATO neighbors of Poland and Lithuania and Hungary and Slovenia and Slovakia. And that is a full destruction of the land that I wholeheartedly love. A beautiful land with wonderful people. And we ask that international communities reach out to their leaders, that can reach out to the leadership of their countries to support or lobby on behalf of Ukrainian people to provide help and to provide assistance in fighting the evil that is now at our door.
Ellen Chu, Ukrainian people are experiencing untold misery, but also some foreign nationals trapped over there. How are they coping with the situation as you get the information from your relatives?
I want to say that we really need the international communities to reach out to their governments and push for safe evacuation of their nationals that are unfortunately stuck right now in Ukraine with no evacuation channels. And it is over 10,000 of Indian nationals, over 2,500 people of Chinese nationality, and overall it is almost 150,000 of foreign nationals that were students, employees, residents of Ukraine that are now in that conflict zone and are in danger. I believe yesterday in one of the bombings in the city of Kharkov, a 21-year-old student from India, Naveen Sheikharappa Gyangudar, was just simply standing in line to get food from the store when the Russian bomb exploded and he lost his life. He was supposed to graduate this year from the medical university, and he was from the Indian state of Karnataka. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Yeah, you are right. It is Karnataka state. Yes, we have lost the precious life of the young man, Naveen Sheikharappa Gyanagoudar.
He was in line with his friends and college students that were sheltering in bomb shelters, but they got out during daytime to get food, to get produce, to return to the bomb shelters, and that is where he unfortunately lost his life, in the middle of a day on the street of the city that he called home for the past 4 years.
Ellen, I understand you are doing your best, working towards providing some succor to the war victims. Can you share with our viewers about your activities in helping the victims over there?
My organization and my company that is normally in peaceful time is a simple logistics company that deals with transportation, has turned into one of the hubs, many hubs in the United States and in the world where Ukrainians came together to provide aid, humanitarian, financial, to people of Ukraine that are still there, to assist with the evacuations, to assist with food and clothing for families that lost everything and ended up in foreign countries, to assist our defense forces with whatever we can do for them, either that providing meals or necessary equipment that we can get for them, either by pooling our resources or petitioning to various organizations and manufacturers for donations. The need for humanitarian aid is absolutely astonishing. As I said, about 1.5 million Ukrainians fled to various countries in Europe at this point, and more are leaving. Most of them are women and children. People that are left home are left with no homes, are left with nothing but the clothes on their backs and whatever they had with them when they fled to shelters when the bombing started. Our organization, nonprofit organization, communicates and works with the Ukrainian consulate, and our goal is to organize all of the nonprofits, all of the volunteers that are in the United States and other countries, to coordinate our work, to be efficient at it, and to make sure that our aid goes directly to the people that need to receive it and need to receive it as soon as possible. I want to go back to stress the urgency of the aid and how much needed it is. A lot of families that we've supported in peaceful times, and we've supported a lot of families with children that are severely disabled. Those kids are extremely hard to evacuate out of their cities because they can't board the planes. They can't board trains. They need ambulances to take them out, and there is no safe routes to take them out. A lot of those children that we supported in peaceful times for their medical needs and their family needs right now are stuck in bomb shelters, in basements, in subway stations, with very little access to medications that they extremely need. Some of them are on ventilators, and we can't even procure generators to support the electrical supply to their ventilator machines. So that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we do what we can to assist people that are suffering tremendously right now.
How the people are thinking? The people, I mean Russian people too, not Putin and his ilk, the vested interest.
The Ukrainian
people's opinion.
The feelings of Ukrainian regarding this war is that of an unsuspecting victim that was attacked by a neighbor. The Ukrainians that have mixed feelings about Russia and its intentions ever since 2014, when Ukrainians expressed their free will and deposed a pro-Russian president and organized into a revolution led by students and free-thinking people and fought Russian invasion, attempt of invasion and complete political occupation of the country in 2014, for their choice of freedom, for their choice of joining independent countries of the West rather than falling under the rule of Russia that was taking them back to the Soviet Union era, to their control, to a complete era of propaganda and limitations of the Ukrainians. They chose the pro-European, pro-Western position, and for that they were attacked in Donbass and Lugansk regions, which were successfully annexed along with the Crimea by Russians. And Russians in those years were emboldened by the fact that the West hasn't done much to fight that or to oppose that. West simply stood aside and allowed Russia to be a bully, to take parts of Ukrainian land, to call them independent republics. And some of my friends, my husband's mother is from those regions, from Luhansk region. And I can tell you that the feelings of the people there, outside of Russian propaganda, they are Ukrainians. That land has always been Ukrainian. And a lot of them fought Russians in 2014 and 15, with eventually moving deeper into Ukrainian territory. And now those same people are on the front lines, defending other portions of Ukraine from Russian occupation and invasion. Unfortunately, the Russian propaganda is much stronger than it was even in the times of Soviet Union right now. The stuff that is being shown on TVs right now, and I can speak firsthand because I speak with my father and his family, I speak with other people that have relatives in Russia, and sometimes it's close relatives. The propaganda machine of Moscow has been able to brainwash its people to the point that they harbor in large amounts hatred to their relatives just because they're Ukrainian, just because they're in Ukraine, just because they don't want to recognize Putin's law and rule over them or accept the vassal state conditions that the Russia is offering. Ukrainians are resilient and resistant and independent and has always been free-thinking. Ukrainians want to choose what their destiny is going to be, what the destiny of their country is going to be, without the influence, be that of Russia or the West or the South or the North. They have always been what we call a Cossack nation, which is the free thinkers, independent people that decide what their destiny is going to be. And Russia, unfortunately, right now has increased the amount of propaganda. They're effectively cutting their people off from social media. There is now a plan that's been announced by Russian government to cut off Russia from World Wide Web, basically putting Russian citizens that are even seeking information about the conflict and information on the atrocities that the Russia is causing, will be unable to reach that information. Russia is slowly turning into North Korea with the tyrant at the helm of it, controlled by military, by police. Whatever protests that are uprising in Russia right now are limited in scope, because unfortunately the majority of the people think that that's none of their business, that government shall do what they do, or they plainly support the aggression of Russia onto Ukraine. They have been brainwashed to the point where they wish death upon Ukrainians just for being Ukrainians and not wanting to succumb to a Russian state. The outlook, unfortunately, we don't know. Russia was expecting to conquer Ukraine in less than 3 days. Their military has been only supplied with a 3-day ration of food when they were sent to fight in Ukraine. And the blatant disregard for human life, be that Ukrainian or Russian, by the Russian government is astonishing. Their soldiers are 18 to 20-year-old children. They've been equipped poorly. They've been trained poorly. They have no supply of food. They are breaking into stores once they go into Ukraine to get food. They're begging locals for food. That is how miscalculated the Russian attack was. Their children have been sent to Ukraine to slaughter. And they took their documents and they took their cell phones And a lot of those children that they sent to attack Ukrainians have died in the fields of Ukraine and will probably never be identified because the Russian government, in order to hide their crimes, has completely erased any way to identify the victims of the war on their side. They went as far as bringing mobile crematoriums to the border, where they're going to erase any sight of those children that they sent to slaughter, that have died in those fields for absolutely no reason by the megalomaniac ideals of their leader. The feeling is overall, the Russia, it will be financially stunned into last century, if not before. Putin wanted the Soviet Union back. Unfortunately, he got it just in Russia, and he's getting it from the very beginning. The Russia is back in 1917, when the Bolsheviks destroyed the system, destroyed the country, destroyed whatever it has achieved at that time, whatever progress it has made at that time. And that is the Russia that we will see in the next decade, probably, if this does not stop. The Ukrainians are determined to fight this war till the last one standing. The women are taking up arms to defend their cities and their families. 80-year-old men that shouldn't be fighting, abandoning their homes, coming back from retirement, and signing up for local defense forces where they're going to patrol their own cities and make sure that they defend them with all they've got. Young kids, young Ukrainian kids, are being drafted and dying by hundreds, defending their own country. Young fathers, young brothers, young sons. And that is the tragedy of this conflict, because the people are fighting because of the propaganda machine that has created its product of brainwashed and sometimes completely ignorant population that justifies the war and justifies the murder and justifies the killings.
Ellen, now what is your appeal to the people across the globe to end the war?
We ask that every citizen of the world, no matter what your nationality, your religion, your faith is, pray for Ukraine into whatever and whoever your gods are, because we need that the most. Make people aware of what you know. Bring awareness to your neighbors. Bring awareness to your relatives all around the world. Don't make it look like just a conflict, a small conflict between two countries that nobody knows anything about. This is no longer politics. This is about life and death of innocent people. This is not a targeted military operation, as Russia calls it. This is a full-blown genocide of Ukrainian people.
Yes, you are right. It's not just politics. It is life and death. And it is not the problem of Ukrainians alone. It is the problem of entire humanity. This war should end, and should end at once. All the democratic forces of the world should unite to bring enough pressure on warmongers. All the democratic forces of the world should unite to see to it that the war ends immediately. As you all know, Harari recently said, if we don't find the ways to end the war will end us. Thanks again, Ellen, for coming on my show and sharing your views. Thank you all for so patiently watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it already. Please click on that subscribe button below the video. Also, please don't forget to click on the bell icon to get the notifications as and when I upload a fresh video to this channel. Thank you.